we've got a Heidenhain control, a Fagar control, a Mitsubishi control, a Mazak control, and I'm leaving a couple out. No two are the same. In addition to that, the manufacturers of the equipment were also different. So not only were the controls different, but the way the machines looked, the way they felt. So we had experts at every location. And he said, Skip, he said, when somebody misses work, this machine's down. Nobody knows how to run it. When somebody over here has a question, nobody can answer it because nobody knows this machine. He said, we need to standardize. And I said, okay. I said, what are you proposing? And he said, we want to buy a Haas VF6. I said, so let me get this right. We've got all these controls and all these machines, and you want to buy a Haas for which we do not have a control. We do not have one of the Haas machines in our shop, and that's what you want to buy. And he said, yes.
Welcome to the Machine Shop Mastery Podcast, where we uncover the stories behind successful machine shops and their owners. By interviewing current and former shop owners, we dig deep to unveil their secrets of success and the struggles and challenges they've overcome on their paths to building thriving shops. We aim to elevate how important the machining industry is and inspire others by highlighting why owning a shop can be a great vehicle to creating jobs, stimulating the economy, and creating wealth. Here's our host, former machine shop owner himself, Paul Van Meter.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of Machine Shop Mastery. Today, I got to sit down and have a really fun conversation with Skip Markley from Diecraft Machining Engineering. And boy, this is a fantastic entrepreneurial story. We go way back in Skip's past where he was a mechanical engineer, but a real passion for the shop floor, getting his hands dirty and actually making things, building things. And he decided that he wanted to be on the other side of the equation and buy a machine shop that served ultimately the steel mill industry, which is where they thrive today. And the journey for the last 26 years is a really interesting one. He talks about some of the mistakes he made, like not having a true plan, buying lots of different, random machines to save a few bucks here and there, and, learning from those experiences that you really need to, standardize, build a plan, build a process, build the team. He also shares that he replaced himself as the president of the business a few years ago and put one of his trusted leaders in that role, and just being able to build an environment where that can even happen, I think speaks volumes to the culture and the leadership that Skip exemplifies here on the episode. So there's some really fun stories about some of their most interesting and fun experiences, the way they hire for heart, not talent, or not the skill set, right? And train it. We've heard this in lots of different episodes. So enjoy this one. It's really fun and engaging. And if you have a chance, please go watch it on YouTube, or at least check it out for a little bit, because Skip joins us from this incredibly beautiful garage at his house. Big soaring wood ceilings, a historic classic Ford GT40 with a new chassis, but a very old original engine. At the end, I do a little video where he actually takes us on a tour, which I will try to get into the YouTube version of this show. So yeah, go check it out on YouTube and enjoy this episode with Skip. Skip, welcome to the Machine Shop Mastery Podcast.
Good morning, Paul. It's great to be here.
It is great to have you here. And when you popped into my screen, sitting where you're sitting in this garage that you have behind you and that beautiful GT40, and then the Panos that you showed me is on your other shoulder.
We can swing this over here and kind of get a front view.
Oh man, that is a sexy car.
Thank you.
Yes, and we'll tell a little story about that in a second.
Okay.
But let's start with a snapshot of Diecraft Engineering today. What do you do? What size are you? Revenue? Niche, industry niches, machines, people, whatever you want to share, and then we'll go back and look a little bit more back into the history of you and the origins of this business.
Okay. Right now, Diecraft is located in Cincinnati, Ohio. We're north of the city, and we're in a 32,000 square foot facility. About 80% of it is under crane, under hook. So we get into some fairly large fabrications and machine parts. We have an engineering group, engineering team. We're kind of built on a three-legged foundation. We have the engineering that we use for customer support and to help us figure out what we're going to make. We have the manufacturing side, and then we have the sales side, the technical side that kind of puts everything together with the company. Our primary customers are steel mills at this time. I think as you talked to Justin earlier in the week, we're kind of going through a transition phase right now where we are starting to go more manufacturing and less repair work. But that's still the fact that we service the steel mills still remains our largest customer base. About 75% of our work is either directly for the mills or for tier one suppliers to the mills. And so in a few minutes, we'll go through kind of my history on how we got to that point. But that's where we are. We've got about 21 CNC machines right now. We are all CNC. We've eliminated all of our manual machining. And yeah, so that's kind of where we are.
Okay. Very cool. And let's talk about the beginning of the business and your background. What did you do before getting into this, and how did it come to be?
Well, I was blessed because at a very young age, I knew I wanted to be a mechanical engineer. I just wanted to figure things out, and if I could take something apart, figure out how it worked, I was in my happy spot. So I went to University of Cincinnati, got a mechanical engineering degree, and went through the co-op program there. And I worked for a company up in Cleveland, and I spent my summers on my co-ops in the corporate engineering. And then I spent the winters on the co-op period in the winter in the plant engineering. And it became clear to me very quickly that I did not understand enough about plant operations and equipment to be effective in corporate engineering. So when I graduated, that insight to me was invaluable. So when I graduated from college, I had a job offer at the local steel mill here in Cincinnati for corporate engineering. And I had another job offer from a chemical facility in Charleston, West Virginia that said, we're going to give you a bicycle, a toolbox, and put you with a 40-year millwright, and you guys are going to go around the plant and find things and fix them. I took the job in West Virginia. I spent 2 years out there studying rotating equipment, particularly pumps, boiler feed pumps, process pumps, and did some work in the powerhouse as well. But that hands-on and working with some extremely intelligent people, they really taught me, and that formed my mechanical background. So it was about 2 years after I took that job, I played in a golf outing, and I got paired with one of the maintenance managers at the steel mill that I had not taken the job with. And he said, we've got this great idea. We're putting mechanical engineers in the field in these trailers. And he said, they're actually getting involved and they're immersing themselves in the operations, and they're making a big difference. And I said, when I interviewed there, that was the job I was looking for, but it was not available. And all you had was a corporate job. And so we got to talking, and in 5 hours on a golf course, you really get to know somebody. And he said, I want to see you in my office next Monday. You got to come here. So I ultimately took a job there and worked in the plant. The company was Armco Steel at the time, and Armco Steel was on the verge of bankruptcy. And so we were losing a lot of money. The Japanese bought into half of that. They called it AK Steel for Armco Kawasaki Steel. Went to Wall Street with a bleeding balance sheet and said, hey, we need you to invest in this company. We're bringing a turnaround expert in, Mr. Graham and his team. They turned around U.S. Steel. They turned around Washington Steel. If you guys will bet on us and invest in us, we are going to turn AK Steel around in the same way. And I will tell you, that was a pressure cooker. They assigned me, as soon as the management team took over, they took me from a fairly easy job, and they threw me in the cold mill, which was the linchpin of the entire organization. So as you process steel, if you can cold roll it, you make money. That was our business plan. If you could cold roll it, you could make money. But if you had to sell it prior to cold rolling, you lost money. And at the same time that I got transferred there, they shut down all the cold mills in the organization except for ours.
Oh,
and
geez.
The thought process was, you guys aren't even close to world class. You will run this cold mill at world class levels. And they compared us to U.S. Steel, where Mr. Graham had come from, and said, you will run at their levels, and if you can't do it, we'll get people in here that can. So needless to say, we walked out of that meeting very shocked, the team of people from the cold mill, and we were at 160 tons an hour. We were expected to run 300 tons an hour, and that's a logarithmic change.
Wow.
So it took a while.
300 tons an hour.
Yeah, it took a while, but we went through that, and I kind of pride myself. I was the mechanical engineer up at the mill that took on the, let's call them the controversial projects, the risky projects. That's the way I'm wired. So if somebody says you can't do something, then give that project to me because we'll figure it out. That's what we do. So we took on a lot of those projects, and ultimately we started to turn this mill around, and we went from 160 to 200. We jumped to 240, 250. And what I found was we were making our biggest strides when we took a piece of equipment out of service that was long past its useful life. We took it out of service and we sent
Hmm.
it to a shop like Diecraft. That shop would tear it down, do a complete disassembly. They'd clean it. They'd take their time, and they'd come back with a report and say, hey, here's the things that are wrong, and these are what needs fixed. And then we would take a trip down to that shop or over to that shop, and we would say, okay, but in the field, we can't make this adjustment because we can't reach it. We can't see to do this. We need an inspection port here. We would like to be able to adjust this. We would like to be able to change this out as a unit. What are all the things that we can do? How about a lifting point here that helps us rig it out? So we would incorporate all those changes. We'd take that machine, we'd put it in service, we'd grab the next one, we'd take it out, and they would go down the path of fixing it. And then while the
Hmm.
test unit was in service, we would say, hey, you know what, this stuff's all great, but here's some more improvements to make. So we'd feed that forward. And we really made some massive strides with companies with these machine shops. Most of those shops were not local to Cincinnati. We were going to Chicago. We were going to Eastern Pennsylvania, Cleveland, but not very many shops in Cincinnati were to that level of technical detail to where they would immerse themselves in these problems, if that makes sense. So we were going to the steel mill,
Yeah,
the
sure.
the steel mill support shops to do this stuff. And through this process, I was killing myself. I was working 100 hours a week. I had 180 people working for me. It was round the clock. I was expected to know
Oh,
every
wow.
delay on the mill. I mean, if it was a 30-second delay, I had to know what the delay was, why it happened, what we're doing about it, who's responsible, all this stuff at 8 o'clock in the morning so that my boss could go out front to the famous morning meetings out there and explain what was going on. And I mean, it was a really hard driving period of my life. I'm very blessed because in this process, I worked for a couple of people that I call true leaders. If you've ever worked with a leader, you know you've worked with a leader. If you haven't, you probably don't know what you're missing. But these people they were mentors. They would get mad at you in public so that everybody understood they were in control, and they would pull you aside in the office and say, okay, now this is what you really need to do. This is how we're going to do this. But that was the culture. That was the culture. It was a hard driving, you better be in control or you're not a fit here. But these guys taught me, they taught me how to win. And so I did a lot growing up in the 90s. And about 1997 or so, I thought, I really want to be on the other side of this business. I'd like to be in one of these machine shops that's doing this work because I really think this is a service we can offer. I was introduced to a shop through one of my vendors, this little shop, Diecraft, and ultimately bought that in 2000. And my first
Okay.
day there was April
2000.
1st of
Okay.
April Fool's Day of 2000.
April Fool's Day.
Yeah. Yep. And
Okay. Very
I was the
cool.
seventh employee. We had 6 Bridgeport machines. We had about 8 lathes. Of the lathes, no 2 were alike. They were completely different. And
Hmm.
it was just a hodgepodge of manual equipment. Everything was done on carbon paper. If we wrote a work order, we
Hmm.
wrote it on carbon paper. The yellow copy went to the shop for instructions. The white copy went in a file. There was a pink copy that was the backup copy. And if it got lost, my right-hand man, Terry, the vice president of the company, who just retired after 52 years, but Terry would write on the pink
Oh,
copy, he
wow.
would say, "This is yellow," and he would put the pink copy out in the shop, and that's how they would.
This is yellow.
But you know
That's
what?
amazing.
We made it work. We made it work.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And it was not, did Diecraft specialize in that steel mill service work at that
Not at
time, or was
all.
it just more a general
N
machine
Not
shop?
at all.
Okay.
It was a total break. I didn't One of the criteria for me in buying a shop was I wanted 0 conflict of interest with my previous employer. I mean, I was totally loyal to the plant. I still am to this day. I still think they're the greatest steel company in the world. Um, but I wanted no conflict of interest at all. So the shop that I bought didn't do a dime for them. And
Okay.
it took us about a year and a half or so. I had friends at the mill and colleagues at the mill call me to say, "Hey, we need your help. Can you do this? Can you do this?" And I told them, I said, "Listen, guys, I need about a year or a year and a half to figure out what diecraft can do and to put some things in place to where we can meet the level of quality that you guys need, because I understand what happens when a weld fails, when something is misassembled or not right." And I said, "I understand the ramifications of the downtime and how expensive it is." And I said, "I'm just not comfortable that we can meet that level
Mm-hmm.
at this point." So it was about a year and a half later or so. I finally made the call and said, "All right, we're ready. Can you throw us an easy one? We're ready." And they did. And we hit it. They threw us a pitch right down the middle and we hit it out of the ballpark, and then things got rolling. And here we are 23 years later,
Okay. Wow.
or 26 years
Now,
later.
so about buying the shop, how did you go about doing that? Did you just from savings, or did you get loans from a bank, or how did you do that?
It was both. So the first thing that happened is I talked to my dad about this, and Dad said, "Hey," he said, "you really need to get an accountant." And there's
Mm-hmm.
some funny stories associated with that are going through my mind. But anyway, we had an accountant. I called him the 1040 EZ guy at the time because that's what our taxes were, and I didn't have time to do them when I was working 100 hours a week. I said, "Forget it." So Tony did our taxes. I called Tony, and he started to ask me some very pointed questions. And all of a sudden, I found out that the accountant had a lot more on the ball than just doing the simple tax forms. And here's a whole world that just opened up in front of me. So uh, I can't stress enough for anybody that's going out there to buy a shop to have a trusted accountant slash financial advisor on their side to do that at an early stage. Yes, it costs a little bit of money, but it is money well spent. So there were a couple things that he informed me about doing. One was, don't overpay for the business. If you overpay
Mm-hmm.
and you buy a business because what you think it can do, and it's going to be worth this because I'm going to make it this down the road, you're carrying that debt burden. And so many businesses fail because they're overpaid for, or the debt burden's so high. But to go back, circle your question, he helped me put a deal together where we were able to use some of the savings, or a lot of the savings that my wife and I had put together over the years, and to combine that to a bank for a bank loan and present them a business plan that was professional and it made sense. Had it not been
Nice.
for Tony and the accountant, this would have never been put together. There was no way. I'm a mechanical engineer, and I was playing in the financial sandbox, and it's a different
Right.
world.
Yeah, yeah. The thing that I've been kind of espousing for such a long time, that when you're just because you're good at the mechanical side, the technical aspects of a business does not make you qualified to run the business itself that does that work. And that came from the book The E-Myth that was so influential to me so many years ago. And so this is just, a great reinforcement that just because you're good at the mechanical side does not mean you know what you're doing, and having that trusted advisor to ask the right questions, make sure you don't know what you don't know, right? And
Mhm.
and Tony did know
Right.
what you needed to do on that side of the business. So that's fantastic advice. And how old were you when you bought it?
So let's see. I was 35 years old.
Okay,
I was
nice.
35. Yep. It's
Very good.
coming up on
Did it seem like a pretty bold move? Were you a little nervous or pretty confident, or
I one of my great memories is when I told Dad this deal came together, and my father actually helped me finance this too, to his credit. But I
oh,
remember walking
nice.
Dad through the shop, and I said, "Here we are," and it was this dirty, small. It was in a 8,000 square foot facility, but I think 2,500 square feet was office, and
Mhm.
it smelled like a machine shop. It was dirty, and we're walking through, and he's looking around, and I could just see the wheels turning in his head, and he finally looked at me and he goes, he said, "Son, I hope you know what you're doing." I said, "Well, Dad, we're going to find out."
Well,
And it wasn't that he
all
didn't
right. Well,
believe,
let's
but there was just a
sure.
little bit of genuine concern on Dad's face when he walked through that shop. And
What have you gotten yourself into?
yeah,
Yeah.
well, and Dad was a food broker, so he didn't have any experience at all in the mechanical side or
Mm.
industry or anything like that. He was a food guy.
In manufacturing, growth isn't accidental, it's engineered. But a lot of suppliers are still building their pipeline on outdated lists, inconsistent follow up, and hope based marketing, hoping their website will somehow bring in leads. Gabe Draper, the founder of Factor, knows that struggle. Years ago, he ran a shop that went bankrupt, not because of quality, but because he didn't have a steady way to generate new opportunities. That experience is what led him to build Factor. Factor helps suppliers create consistent sales opportunities by combining targeted outreach with marketing that puts you in front of the right buyers. Their team finds the right companies, starts real conversations, and sets qualified meetings. So if your pipeline swings with referrals or seasonality, Factor brings a system that puts you back in control. And for listeners of this show, Factor is offering a free custom report that highlights the best opportunities in your industry, plus a list of real companies that match what you do. Request yours at factormfg.com/chips. That's FACTUR mfg.com/chips. Well, let's then tell the story from there till now. What did you do once you took over the shop? I mean, you said you took about a year and a half before you reached out to your old mill. Just let's just talk about the growth over the years. Obviously you replaced all the manual equipment with CNC and, clearly modernized and grew. So let's tell a bit of that story.
Yeah. So back in 2001, we bought our first CNC machine, and it was a waterjet. We were farming waterjet.
Okay.
Yeah, we were farming waterjet work out to a little shop over on the west side of Cincinnati. They were the only waterjet company in Cincinnati at that time at the industrial level. Now, General Electric and Procter and Gamble, places like that had captive machines, but
Sure.
as far as the industrial water jetting, there was only one in the city. And of course, everybody was lined up to get it. We were having a hard time getting parts. And I was on the phone with the guy one day, and I said, I'm going to buy a water jet because I can't get parts from you. And he kind of laughed. And this is about 4 months later or so, the water jet hit our floor, and it was an Omax water jet. I think we were the first 30 horsepower pump and a 50,000 PSI that Omax built. So jumping from 40,000 to 50,000 PSI was a logarithmic change. And with that came all kinds of problems, I think we had the Omax guy on our floor full time for 3 or 4 months while they did their R&D on our floor to get this thing working. It was a science project. But they got it working, and gosh, we ran that machine all day, every day. And that really got us on the map. So, and I ran it at first.
Was it prepping things that you then finished machined, or were you just cutting out things and sending them right out the door?
It was both. But it was more,
Okay.
it was more of just making the parts that we made at the time quicker. So,
Right. Yep.
I can remember one of our customers needed some special hooks that were cut out of round bar, and we didn't know how we were going to make these things on a mill. It was basically a 2-axis part cut out of round bar, but this radius was important. I said, well, let's put the round bar in the water jet and see what happens. We cut it, and it turned out perfect. We made a whole bunch of hooks and made a bunch of money, and I said, okay, this is great. This thing does a lot more than just rum-dum flat parts. And so it just expanded our horizons. And at that point, we were running on QuickBooks, an old version of QuickBooks on a 286 computer. And there was only one computer in the whole company, and that was it.
286.
Yeah. Old 286 computer.
I remember those.
So we put, I don't know, it must have been 2003 or so, about 2003. We went to an ERP system, and we put computers on the managers' desks. And then that's the ERP system that we ran all the way up until we just converted a pro shop here in 2022. But to the credit of the ERP system, and I think you can say this about any ERP system, if you run an old manual shop and you're doing things the old way and you go to any ERP system, it is going to force you into a little bit more modern approach to your business. And that's what it did for us. It took us down the path. We outgrew it probably in 2015, 2014, and we should have upgraded by then, but we made it work. And, here we are today with Pro Shop, and I feel a lot better about that now.
Okay. So it reinforced more standardized business processes and made you just structure things better.
Yeah, so that was a big step. And then in about 2001, we bought the water jet. 2002, we bought our first vertical machining center. And the floor that we were in that business was at most 4 inches of concrete. at most. And so we brought this 60 by 30 Viper machining center in that was a big, heavy,
That's a
a
big
big
machine.
machine. Yeah. And we put it on the floor in the back of the shop and leveled it all up. And then, I don't know, it must have been a year later or so, we noticed all the coolant was running towards the back left of the machine, and checked the level, and it was way out. So we leveled it up again, and another year later, we noticed all the coolant was running to the back left of the machine. And, but you know what? That thing made a lot of parts. And
Hmm.
that's the machine that broke us in. It taught us how to make parts. It taught us how to program. It, and so that was our first step in the CNC machining. And by that time, we were spending half of our time moving jobs out of the way so we could get to the next job, because we were stuffed full in that shop, absolutely full. And in '04, we bought the building that we're in now at 32,000 square feet. And so we thought that place was cavernous. The building we're in
Wow,
now,
in
it was
'04.
cavernous when we moved in there.
Yeah, just 4 years after you bought the shop. That's a big jump.
So, and you go through the typical move things. For us, we had one vertical machining center. That was the linchpin of the organization, for any type of machine parts that we were making, if it couldn't be run on a Bridgeport. We load the machine up on the truck. We're literally getting ready to pull the truck out of the parking lot, and our number one customer called and said, "Hey, we're down. We have a problem. We need you to fix this." And it had to go in the Viper that was on the truck and disconnected. So we said, "Hurry up, get the truck over to the new shop. Just get it on the floor, get some temporary wire to it. We need to run this thing today." And that's what we did. We got it on the floor, put it in the middle of the shop. We ran a couple of parts for these guys, and then we took it apart and slid it back into its position then.
Wow.
So
Yeah, when a big operation like that is down, like what is the hourly cost for a mill to be down?
I'll tell you what, the number used to be $180,000 an hour. It was $3,000 a minute when a hot strip mill's down. That number is well north of that now. But yeah, when they're down, it's a big deal.
Yeah, speed is the most important thing to get their parts.
It
They
is
don't really
speed,
care what
and
the
you
cost
have to be
is. You
right.
just
You
gotta.
don't want to put a part in that shuts them down again.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So
of
things
course.
must be right. There's an intensity there that has to be there. So we moved to that shop, and we gradually started to add CNC machines. We we went through this process of adding another mill. I think we added our first CNC lathe probably in about the '07, '08 range. We were late into the game on the
Okay.
on the turning part, but that's where it was. It was really interesting because Justin, who's the president of our company now, came to me in 2011. I can remember the day he did this. And he said, "Hey," he said, "I've been talking to the team down there." And he said, "We want to know, we have a question for you." And I said, "What's that?" And he said, "We want to know if you're serious about this business."
It's an interesting question.
Yeah. And at first I was taken back, and I said, "Okay." I said, Why are you asking this?" And he said, "Well," he said, "we are having a real problem downstairs." He said, "We've got Heidenhain controls, Fagor control. We've got a Heidenhain control, a Fagor control, a Mitsubishi control, a Mazak control." And I'm leaving a couple out. No two are the same. In addition to that, the manufacturers of the equipment were also different. So not only were the controls different, but the way the machines looked, the way they felt. So we had experts at every location. And he said, "Skip," he said, "when somebody misses work, this machine's down. Nobody knows how to run it. When somebody over here has a question, nobody can answer it because nobody knows this machine." He said, "We need to standardize." And I said, "Okay." I said, "What are you proposing?" And he said, "We want to buy a Haas VF6. I said, "So let me get this right. We've got all these controls and all these machines, and you want to buy a Haas for which we do not have a control. We do not have one of the Haas machines in our shop, and that's what you want to buy." And he said, "Yes." So they had bought into this before that, and we ordered the machine, brought it on the floor, and I think it was in 24 hours, maybe 48 hours, we were making parts on it. And it was clear that these guys bought into it. The control was modern, and to Haas's credit, there's a lot of features on there that are just really good for the operator and intuitive. And you can go to the internet and
Yeah,
answer about any
sure.
question you want to about a Haas machine. So we put that on the floor. It was a success. It was really obvious that we needed to double down on that. So we bought another one and another one and another one. And I think we're up to maybe 15 Haas machines right now, I think is where we are. And the
Did
nice
you
thing is
start
it's
selling off
standardized.
the old? Did you start selling off some of the old
Oh, yeah.
ones?
Yeah. Yeah, we did. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And so that just, I mean, there's some obvious probably answers to what that did for your shop, but maybe just elaborate on what the most impactful ones were.
One of the things was it helped us with breakdowns. So when you're in the service industry, you're doing repair work, there's always a lot of breakdowns. It can be a breakdown because scope creep on our floor. Here's a problem we didn't realize in this machine. This needs repaired. We need to replace these parts or whatever. It can be that. It can be a customer that calls and says, hey, we just had a wreck and we broke 5 things and we're sending something your way and you guys got to do something about this. When you only have 1 or 2 tables, you're always in the, hey, we got to tear this down. We have to put this in. So
Right.
once we got to what I call critical mass on the machining centers, basically there's a table open someplace that we can get into conveniently. So we might have to put a small part on a big machine or hang a bigger part out of a small machine, but there's a table someplace where we can get in there without disrupting the business too much. I think that was a big change for us when we finally got enough horsepower in the shop where we could actually juggle those things. And I can remember
Mm-hmm.
one purchasing agent getting mad at me because we charged him a teardown fee for a job. And he said, you can't do that. He said, I don't pay teardown fees. We don't do that. I said, well, we had to tear down. He says, then you need to figure that out. He said, we can't do that. You have to figure that out. That's your job. And I took that to
Mm.
heart. He was right. He was absolutely
Yeah.
right.
Sure. Sure. That's interesting. And that also obviously allowed flexibility between teammates to go just move on machines because they all knew the controls and they, each machine wasn't tied to a person that only knew how to run it.
Right. And they had somebody to ask questions with. And
Yeah.
between, all of a sudden you put 2 or 3 people together that are all familiar with the machine and you ask a question, even if nobody knows it, when they collaborate together, a lot of times
Hmm.
they can figure it out.
And was your revenue growth over the years largely just word of mouth and just organically, with these steel mills? Because it's sort of a small niche, kind of industry.
It's a small niche industry, but it's a large industry. So it's interesting. If you look at the Far East after the war, after World War II, the first thing that all those countries did to rebuild was build steel mills. And so the reason is steel is one of the basic building blocks of any economy, and it employs a lot of people. So
Hmm.
it steel mills are like the heart and soul of any basic economy that's out there. Everything is built with steel. It's a larger industry than you think. So the way we've grown it is we have a sales presence and we have people in the mills every day to talk to the customers because we have to understand what does this part do? Why is this important? If there was a failure, why did this fail? It goes back to my roots on, asking the whys. Why is this fail? Why did it fail? Why did it fail? What's the root cause? Was there something else that happened? Is there something we can do? If we beef this part up, what are we going to break next? Are we creating a bigger problem by fixing this? Does this need to be the weak link? It just all those things.
Hmm.
So I think the fact that our salespeople are mill savvy and they understand what goes on in the mill and they can bring that information back to us. We earn a trust level with our customers that allows us to grow and they send more work our way because they understand the horsepower that we've got in our shop.
Hmm.
So I think
When
that
did you?
on-site presence is extremely important in our business.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds really insightful. When did you shift to that model where you had outside salespeople that would go on site and largely be, with your customers a lot of the time?
Diecraft did that before I bought it. That was their model. Although it was a small
Okay.
company, it was Terry, but he would go out and talk to the customers, had those relationships. And basically when I came on board, after a year and a half or so, I started to call in the mill and I was the mill guy and I would go up there 1 or 2 days a week and talk to those folks. And then
Mm,
it
okay.
was a few years later, we actually hired a full-time salesperson who was retired from AK, and then retired from the
Oh,
mill.
I like it.
And then he became our sales guy. And then when he retired, we had another retiree take over. So, but these are all mill savvy people that we brought in to do that. I know today
Mm,
everything's done on the internet with Google searches, and yes, that's powerful. There's no question about it. But at the end of the day, I'm still kind of an old school guy. I think when you look at somebody in the eye and you talk to them, you earn a level of respect there, and there's some empathy that you get.
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, selling is still, people buy from people they know, like, and trust, and building that personal relationship is just a huge part of that.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's awesome. You now employ, 30 something people. Tell me a little bit about how you've hired those folks. Do you engage in like workforce development, local tech schools, anything along those lines?
Yeah, that is a resource that we have not tapped into. We've
Okay.
tried a couple of times, got some people that didn't work out, and it's not fair to say this about the tech schools that a couple of instances, therefore the tech schools don't work. That's not fair, but um, we didn't find that to be fertile ground for new hires. We are Justin and I are actually revisiting that right now, and I think we start to look and point the finger back at ourselves because have we actually been involved with a tech school? Have we got to know the instructors? Have we really vetted the people? Looked at the programs? And the answer to that's no. We have not done that. So I think that's
Mm,
something we need to look at. We do things by a lot of word of mouth
hmm.
where we'll go out to our employees and say, hey, we need a machinist or we need this. Does anybody know anybody? We don't hire for experience. We hire for heart. If somebody can pass the heart test, like they want to learn, they they have the right attitude, we can teach this business very quickly. If somebody does not have that, it doesn't matter how much training we put them through. We cannot make them a good machinist.
Oh, and probably not a good employee that fits with your culture, fits with your team, meshes,
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So we've
That's
hired some of our best machinists were people that were um, cable installers, bicycle repair, worked in a bicycle repair shop, just completely unrelated businesses. They came in, they've immersed themselves in what we have. We've got the core group of people now that can train,
mhm.
and boy, we've developed some really really good people inside of Diecraft.
Hey, it's Paul from Making Chips. If you've been burned by recruiters who don't understand manufacturing, you are not alone. That's exactly why we created HireMFG Leaders. We're not just recruiters, we're current and former shop owners, and we know what it takes to lead in this industry. Whether you're hiring your next operations leader, sales manager, or production supervisor, we'll help you find someone who actually fits. Learn more at makingchips.com/hire. That's awesome. It sounds like, from my conversation with Justin, you guys, it's a very dynamic environment. You're doing thousands of work orders of very small quantities, right? It's not like you're just running production for weeks on end. Like you're constantly changing over, constantly doing setups, and that's got to be technically demanding.
It definitely is. I tell my staff regularly, this is a thinking man's game. They have to think because we are not doing the same thing every day. And really, my I think my staff in general thrives on that. I think they get bored when they come in to do the same thing every day, day in and day out. And we get those jobs occasionally where somebody has to come in day after day after day and do the same thing. And uh, the general feedback I get is they don't like that. They like the dynamics of moving and thinking and setting up and tearing down. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah. It's definitely a very different, just different environment, different skill set, and engages your brain in a way that just running the same part all day just doesn't.
right.
I'd love to dig into the question of, or the topic of you having a president that's not you,
Hmm.
and kind of look back over maybe the last few years of, buying and then growing this business, getting to a place where you decided to make the choice to, bring someone in or, promote someone to president so you can work on more strategic things or spend more time in this beautiful garage mahal that's behind you or better life balance or just yeah, tell us about that whole idea. Many shop owners and leaders don't do that. They don't hire someone to run the business and kind of move themselves out of that role.
Right. I think I have to go back to our co-op program. At one point in 2004, we had 7 co-op engineers from the University of Cincinnati. Um, it was a happening place for the co-ops. And so what we did is we took the two best co-ops, the ones that performed the best for us in our environment, and it's Justin and James, and those two guys are both with us today. James runs our engineering department, head of our engineering department, outstanding engineer, does a great job, and Justin now ultimately is the president of the company. So we developed that leadership team along the way, and it came to a point where we had a shop manager leave for another opportunity. And Justin came to me and said, Skip, he said, I don't want you to worry about anything. I would like the role of plant manager because I can do this. And he said, you've got other things you need to worry about. Let me worry about the shop. I've got this. And that's a pretty powerful statement. Pretty powerful statement.
Absolutely. That's
And so
amazing.
Justin stepped into that role. Learned a lot, big learning curve, lot of different pressures going from an engineer project manager to a management role. It did an outstanding job. Justin's come to me over the years with the machining centers and the various things, and it's clear that Justin wants to take the business in a little different direction and go into more of the manufacturing side, less of the repair side.
Hmm.
The repair projects can really slow us down. So we get into manufacturing and then all of a sudden we get a repair job and we've got to stop. And when we repair things that have been in service for 25 years, you can't restore them to the print. You have to restore them to working condition. Well, we have to define what's working condition. That means the whole team's got to stop. They've got to go look at this, talk to the customer, figure this out. It's just a slower process. And it's really hard to run both of those businesses under the same roof, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. For
So what
sure.
I'm comfortable with is the repair side. I love that stuff. That's what I'm comfortable with. I'm also 60 years old, and I've got a sunset here at some point where I'm going to go so far, and this business has to thrive when I'm gone. And so we've looked at that. Justin's got a different roles, and so we decided to make Justin the president a couple years ago. He
Awesome.
has really driven that and lived up to what he said that, hey, this is what I want to do. And he's put things in place. And I will tell you, we're not there. We're in the middle of this battle right now to transition this business. So for me to sit here and tell you, yeah, we've done this, it's done. We've done this, it's done. Everything's rosy. No, we're fighting the battle every day. Um, it's a challenge. It's a real challenge. And I think personally, when I look at myself, I've always told people I'm a builder, I'm not a maintainer. So I'm the
Mm-hmm.
aggressive, do this, it's crazy, nobody else wants to do it. I go
Yep.
back to the projects that I did at the steel mill. Um, I did the crazy stuff. That's when I really thrive is I thrive under crazy. Um, that also can chase people away. It can drive a majority of people crazy when I'm going full speed ahead. So it is time to have a different approach at our company. And I realize that Justin's very kindly presented that to me as well. And so that was the decision we made. And I couldn't be happier with the trajectory of the company right now. He's doing a good job.
Mm. So, I mean, clearly you have a real go-getter in Justin
Mhm.
who has, stepped up and put himself into that position over the years to say, hey, I want to take on more. Um, but that just doesn't happen because you have a go-getter. That happens because you are, building a business or have the culture or whatever where it's safe to do that. There's opportunity for people to feel that level of confidence. Um, and I've seen it in some other businesses that I've, interviewed and been a part of. And in some businesses that just doesn't exist. Even if you have go-getters, they don't step up and say that. What do you think that you've done to facilitate that environment or culture where people feel empowered to do that?
I'm a big believer that a team of people can outwork the same number of people that are individuals. So, and you have to have a team approach because there are people that you can disagree with every day, but there are things that those people bring to the table that will help you and help the organization. And so I like to think that I know everything, but I know that I don't. And so in order for this company to grow, I have to trust these people. I have to trust the team. And so when you put a team member out to play, you've got to let them play. You can't micromanage the team. It won't work. So I go back to, we struggled to get to $1 million because, and I guess at the time it was more like $1.5 million. And it was because I had to trust some people that I didn't know. I was a new player on the team, and I had to trust some people, so Terry and people that I didn't know, to do their job. So we struggled for a little bit, and we got to the 1.5 million. I think the next threshold for us now is the $10 million level. We are struggling to get to the $10 million level. We're at 8.5 million now. The $10 million threshold requires processes in place. It requires structure. If I didn't trust Justin and his team of people, there is absolutely no way we would get there. So I've we've picked the players. Now we have to continue to give them what they need to win and let them play on that field with every advantage they can get. And so I recognize that to grow, we've got to put things in place that are scalable and trust people to do their jobs. And it
I love
starts
that.
with Justin, me trusting Justin, Justin trusting his team, and then his team trusting the hourly workforce and the people that are on the floor that are actually doing the work. It flows all the way down. And if I don't set that example from the top, there is no way it's going to flow.
Yeah, 100%. That's great wisdom. Mike Payne and I on, I guess it was his show, talked about this like $2 million threshold that many businesses reach, probably similar to the 1.5 you're talking about, where they're, overly reliant on the owner, the founder, or whatever, as like the central spoke and hub of everything that's going on. And you just hit your capacity to make decisions, to delegate, to, just get things done. And so when you break through that and empower the team and trust people and empower them, that's your next level. But again, there's this other threshold in the future where you have to become more process based. You have to have real good systems and tools so things can scale past that phase that they were in prior. So it's cool to see that in action there in your shop.
Well, and I've made the mistake of trying to do everything myself. And what happens is I get back into that 90-hour, 100-hour work week, can't sleep at night. It affects my personal life at home. I've made that mistake. It hurts. And then you have to sit back and you have to reflect and pray and say, okay, why is this happening? And so many times it comes back to, well, I'm not trusting this person or this team to do the job when they're fully capable of doing it. So there's that old saying, you point your
Mm,
finger at somebody, there's four fingers pointing back at yourself. It's
yeah.
you know. So I'm thinking, why did you guys not do this? Why did you guys not do this? And in reality, upon reflecting and thinking about it, I'm like, wait a minute, I did not equip them to do this. I didn't let them do this. I think another big thing that we have to do as leaders is we have to allow people to make mistakes. Mistakes hurt. They hurt. Nobody wants to fail at anything, but that's the time when we grow the most, is when we make a mistake and we have to fix the mistake. And we say, you know what? I'm never going to do that again. If we don't allow people to make mistakes, they never feel that pain and they never learn. They never grow up. It's like falling off a bicycle. You learn not to fall on a bicycle by falling and skinning your knees a few times. You say, you know what? I'm just not going to do that anymore.
Did you learn that in the super high pressure environment that you worked in early in your career with those good leaders?
I should have, but I think I was young in my
Okay.
career and I was capable of working 100 hours a week. Or there was one week where I worked 135 hours in one week. Um,
Wow.
yeah, there's only 168 in a week, and I worked 135 of them. I look back and I say, could I have done that and not worked so many hours? And the answer to that is yes. I could have, had I known then what I know now. So I
Hmm.
think some of that is again, that was my falling off the bike, skinning my knee, saying, this hurts, don't do this. And I think that was part of my growth.
Fellas, hey, well, I got you both real quick. So I'm really trying to drill in like our work holding options at Hill and all of our shops. Got any advice?
Mike, it's as simple as RASRAM.
As what?
RASRAM, you've never heard of it?
I have not.
Paul?
What Nick is referring to is the 7 habits of highly effective work holding:
That makes more sense.
repeatability, accessibility, scalability, reliability, adaptability, and modularity.
If you want to find all of these principles in one catalog, check out the SMW Autoblok catalog. You can find it at smwautoblok.com.
Thanks, fellas.
So, what do you spend your time doing these days, and what is the ultimate succession plan for Diecraft?
It's been really interesting. We've cut our office staff down from 11 to 6, and I think you and Justin expanded on that in your talk. But we did that by putting systems in place. We went to the PEO. We did all that. One of the people we lost was our office manager / accounting person. So
Right.
I have been thrown into the role of accounting, and that's what I do. And I
Okay.
will tell you that this has been a really good experience for me. It's not my passion. It's not what I like to do, but it's been very eye-opening. So it's been really good, and we're putting systems in place, processes in place on the accounting side now that are making that job easier. I just took a vacation for a week, and I thought when I came back, it was going to take me forever to get caught up on the accounting. Literally within a day, I was pretty much back to normal again. So because a lot of
Yeah.
the processes worked and a lot of those things worked. So um, I've been the last year or so with Justin at the helm. I've been focused on the accounting. And
Okay.
so as far as work goes, I've been doing that. Now I still walk the floor every day. Try to talk to every employee every day just to see how they're doing. And you know, that's my passion. I have to get away from the computer
Sure.
and go down on the floor and see what's
Of
going on
course.
because I love it.
Now that I imagine doing that accounting role is not something you'll continue to do forever. Possibly, you're sort of filling the role temporarily. Making sure the systems are all in place, and maybe you'll hand it off to someone else in the future. But do you have kids that might take over the business? Are you going to sell it to Justin? Maybe this is too much information to ask, but yeah, what is your plan for the business?
Yeah, we're still working on that, but this management team ultimately is going to take over the business. So
Okay.
my kids are not interested. My son does work there. He runs our
Okay.
waterjet. He's learning to run a machining center right now. He loves what he's doing. He's a hands-on guy, but he really likes the shop floor, and I don't think he wants the pressures of the employee problems, the office problems, the customer, all that. That's
Yeah.
that's not his bailiwick. And he's 27 years old, and I think he's still trying to figure out what he wants to do, and that's okay. I told both my kids, my daughter and my son, I said, if you want to do this business, you have to love it. You have to really be
Hmm.
passionate and love it because if you don't, it will chew you up and spit you out. You make mention in many of your podcasts where you say this is the hardest business in the world to manage and own and run.
Yeah.
I cannot thank you enough for saying that because I don't think anybody outside of our industry really understands that. We are in our case, we're in a capital intensive industry and we have no capital or we
Yeah.
have very little capital. And so we have to guard
Sure.
that. But that comes with an amount of pressure that is just enormous. I've told my kids, I said, if you're passionate about it, you really love to make parts and you really love to make things right and learn how things are made and how things work. And you just want to dive in and do the best. Um, it's fun. There's no
Hmm.
reward like that, but gosh, it'll knock your brains in on the process. It will absolutely beat your brains in. So I've just,
Yeah.
I told my kids, I said, you guys make your decision and I'll stand by that. Ultimately you have to be happy at what you're doing. You have to be happy at life. And so I think the decision's been made. They don't want to do that.
All
I
right.
definitely don't want Diecraft to die with me, which comes back to why is Justin the president and why do we have this team
Yeah.
of people? What is there after me? It's this next generation of the management team that understands it.
Yeah. Yeah. You just mentioned some of the big highs, the great joys, along with the hardship of running a business like this. Can you share some of your mm, best memories, just sort of best experiences in the last 26 years of this business?
Sure, yeah. I'll tell you one that's fairly recent. It was right before COVID. I think I got this idea from the guy that saved the bar rescue.
Okay.
I think I
Yeah,
got
yeah.
he always puts the bar through a stress test. I went out and I put a bid in on a bridge mill, a big Chevalier bridge mill, 80 by 160 that was in a bank. It
Wow.
was in a bank repo. I put a low bid in at the end of the year in 2019, I think it was. Put a bid in, and lo and behold, the bank accepted the bid. And this was on a Friday night. They accepted the bid, and I didn't sleep that night. And I thought, oh, what have I done? Lowe's opened at 6 o'clock in the morning that morning. I was at Lowe's when they unlocked the door because I had to get one of those lasers to shoot up to the top of our building to see if this thing would fit in our
Would
building.
even fit.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
fortunately, God was on my side that day, and we had about 3 feet of clearance because the whole night I'm thinking, we got to build a doghouse and do this building. And, just one of those things. So anyway, so we bought this machine. I told the staff, I said, here's the deal. I said, we're about to go through a major stress test, and we're going to get all this stuff done in one shot. They said, what are you talking about? I said, I just bought this Chevalier bridge mill. It's going to go over there. I said, while we're pouring the foundation for this, we're going to put the foundations in for the two big CNC lathes that we had temporarily put on the floor. I said, we're going to put the correct foundations in for those. So we're going to pour 100 yards of concrete in these pits for the three machines, the Chevalier being the biggest one. So we're gonna do the foundations. I have a crane that's in storage right now, a bridge crane, a double girder bridge crane that won't quite fit in the building. So James, you're gonna have to make the design changes to this crane, and we're gonna install this crane. We're gonna install the bridge mill. We are going to buy the tool room with the Zoller system and get that implemented. We're buying a Faro arm. And all while this is going on, we're putting a new roof on the building.
That's a lot of projects all at once.
Yeah, and so we divided and conquered. We said, "Okay, you got this, you got this, you got this." And, I got the assignment of I had to assemble the Chevalier. So I would work in the mornings, and then about noon or so, I'd put the coveralls on, go downstairs, and I put the Chevalier together and worked with I had to have riggers come in because this thing was way too heavy. But the riggers
Yeah.
came in, they did the heavy lifting and that kind of stuff. But from there, I mean, that was my job. And all this stuff came together. And I remember when all this was done, stepping back and just looking around and just looking at the shop. And I thought, wow, we have come a long way in 4 months or 5 months. It was an amazing transformation to the shop.
That's very cool.
So
That's
it's
very
things like
cool.
that that are so rewarding. It's just amazing. It's so rewarding.
As we kind of maybe start to wrap up here, what would you say were the most important decisions that you made that allowed the company to have the success that it's had over the years?
That's a great question. Because it's really hard for me to take credit for these things. I like to think that I have made an environment where the team here can make these decisions and make these roles. So I don't want to underestimate what they've done.
Hmm.
So as far as the things that we've done, I think the co-op program early on and working with the University of Cincinnati, I did that because I wanted to give back to the university. I'm so proud of the University of Cincinnati and so thankful for what they gave me and the education they gave me. We brought the co-ops in, not realizing at the time that those would be the future leaders of the company. And I mean, those are
Mm,
just we got some great guys out of there. Um, so I think that was a pivotal decision at Diecraft to get the right people in the spots.
that's good. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
one.
I mean, yeah. The team obviously is, like you said, you can't do it yourself. Teams can outwork anyone individually, and having the right people
Uh-huh.
is, yeah, so critical.
Yeah, I think some other things that have happened in my life too that I can't emphasize this enough that there has been a higher power with me on every step of this way. I can't tell you, I could write a book, and I really should write a book down the road at some point about many of the things and how they occurred and how they happened. There's no way that I made this happen. There were things that just came into place. I remember the day we moved into the new building and there was no electrical distribution. And so we had to I wanted to put in the hot rails up on top where you snap the boxes in. And
Yeah.
and so put bus bars in. And I remember talking to my electrician that we worked with, a private electrician. He said, "Gosh, Skip," he said, "just for me to buy the materials to do that," he said, "I've been shopping this around." He said, "It's going to be $50,000, you know." And I'm looking at that. I said, and then the labor to put it in. He said, "Yeah." I said, "Ooh." So I went home and I got on the computer that night and typed in bus bar for sale, and bing, I got a hit. And here was a building that was being tore down up in Minnesota, taking out all the bus bar. And they wanted $3,000 for everything. That was the bus bars, the termination blocks, everything. And it was perfect for it was exactly the right amount of bar that we needed and everything. I didn't know that at the time. I knew it was close, but I mean, literally, when we got the install done, it was everything that we needed. And the people that
Hmm.
took it apart and packaged it up such that the first part we needed was at the top of the box, and it went up, and then the bus bars went up, and all the fasteners were organized, and all the boxes were laid out. I mean, stuff like that doesn't happen by itself.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So,
That's very cool. Have you heard the episode with Court Derkalski from True Line Industries on this podcast? If not,
no, not
you
yet.
need to go back and listen. You need to go back and listen to it.
Okay.
Um, I will look and see what episode number it is for others that want to take a look. But that one was fantastic. Speaking of sort of higher power, that is episode 78. So look up episode
I will.
78. Truly one of my favorite podcasts ever I've done. And then I don't think it's actually out yet, but we have one coming out probably in the next few weeks with Dave Haytag, who runs a gear company and s- and has actually written 2 books. Just also an incredible story. Sort of, a real inspired story and mission driven, and yeah, those are. I love that element of some of these interviews.
Uh-huh.
I guess last question or two here. What would be your best advice to other shops that are earlier in their journey and want to have the same success that Diecraft Engineering has had?
Yeah, I touched on one of the things is make sure you have a good source for financial. That's,
Hmm.
the financial advice, the accountants. They will make sure that the reporting to the bank that you finance with is correct. They'll go over that. Make sure you don't send bad information to the bank. That's some of the worst things you can
Hmm.
do. So having a team outside of the core business to help you is very important. Legal advice, generally, I've not had to use a lot other than setting up the business, but it's possible that you need to have legal advice too. But leaning on outside sources like that is a number one. I think the second thing, some of the mistakes that I've made along the way that I've learned from when we woke up in 2011 with all that different equipment on the floor, it was an
Hmm.
eye-opening thing for me that said, you have no vision.
Hmm.
You need to have a vision of where this is going. And I think that's what Justin and his team were trying to share with me is, hey, are you serious about this? Because we need some vision on what we're doing. So we made a lot of mistakes, probably wasted a lot of capital trying to force the business to run because we could buy this machine over here for $10,000 less than this machine. So that $10,000 in savings probably cost us a lot more than $10,000.
Yeah, sure.
But so I think laying out a vision and then following that, it doesn't have to be right, but at least you follow a plan. And then as the plan evolves, you can change it as you go. But I think I rushed in as I tend to do in my life. I rushed into things a little quicker than I should have.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I think that's a good second thing is just to lay out a plan and follow it. And
Yeah,
and I think the
solid.
third thing, we've touched a lot about this, is surrounding yourself with people that you can trust to make good decisions and then allow them to do it.
Hmm.
And that's what I've done well is I've always had a good team of people and they were able to fix some of the chaos that I was creating in hindsight.
Yeah. Yeah, I can relate. I'm a little bit of a builder like you. I like the early stages. I like the craziness, and then you know install really smart, capable people. Get out of their way. Let them run and refine and
Mhm.
optimize, and try not to create too much chaos, in your wake. So that's good advice. Thank you. All right. If people want to learn more, reach out to Diecraft Engineering or connect with you, how would you advise them to do so?
The best way, we have a website, diecraftmachine.com. That's a good way. If you want to see a picture of diecraft through the employee's eyes, you can go to our Facebook page. I don't have anything to do with the Facebook page other than I occasionally like a picture or like a comment or something, but this is diecraft through their eyes. It's the Diecraft Machining and Engineering Facebook page. We are also on LinkedIn, Diecraft Machining and Engineering on LinkedIn. And yeah, we would love to hear from people, love to meet new people, love to meet people in our industry, share some problems, share opportunities, share thoughts, funny stories. We always love a funny story. And this community is special. There are so many good people. And Paul, I gotta thank you and your organization, because we went to the Top Shops conference. We met a lot of nice people down there. It was really interesting to hear so many people in the battle that we're in, and to know that we're not alone. So yeah, so we love to hear from people through our social media, and then they can always pick up the phone and call and have an old-fashioned conversation too.
I love it. Well, I'm glad you went to the show. It's good to get out of the shop and expand your horizons, meet people, network, hear from others. Yeah, it really does help to, humanize your own experience, and like you see and hear other people going through the same thing, and you always pick up something new. So I appreciate you doing that, and also contributing in this way, sharing your wisdom. And congratulations on the success that Diecraft Machining Engineering has had. It's pretty cool to see it grow.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for being a part of it like you have here in the past couple of years.
It's truly my pleasure. All right. Thank you, Skip. Appreciate it. Have a good day.
You too. Take care.
And do you take it out and track race it?
I'm going to. I just bought this car about 3 months ago. I have not tracked it yet. So we're going to track it. I did have the GT40 at the track, not this past fall, but a year ago in the fall at the GT40 reunion up at Pittsburgh. And so I got to drive it pretty hard on the track up there, which was a whole lot of fun.
That is a beautiful rig. And you said 700 horsepower, 427?
Yeah, in this car, yeah.
Ford GT.
Here's the
GT40, yeah. Oh, man, look at that tool.
If I can aim the camera right, there we go.
Dude, that is a thing of beauty. Holy cow. That is sexy as hell.
Yeah, that's a Blair Patrick.
It must sound
racing
amazing.
Engine. Yeah, Blair Patrick is the Ford FE engine guru from the the engines from the 60s that dominated NASCAR, and they dominated the endurance racing with Dan Gurney, AJ Foyt, Kenny Miles, all those guys.
Right.
But that's the engine that dominated racing in the 60s, and Blair Patrick built that engine. We run 110 octane race fuel in it. Cool. It's 12.5 to 1 compression. So, yeah.
Oh, what a beast.
So I kind of had this garage in
look
my,
at those.
kind of had it in my plans. If you look up there, if you see that horizontal beam,
yep.
I don't know if you can blow it up or not. And see how we've got the support rods coming down, and you'll see the little GT40 cars up there.
Oh,
I had to make those support beams look cool. So if you look real close, there's a black.
Oh, yes.
Yes. So if you look real close, there's a black one, there's an Arctic blue one, and there's a gold one.
Oh, my gosh.
And that was the finishing
amazing.
order of the 1966 24 Hours of Le Mans when the Fords finally thrashed Ferrari in the 24 Hours of Le Mans.
Oh, that is awesome.
Yeah. Then we did.
What is that blue line going across?
That's a light that I put in the wall just to break up the wall space there. I still haven't. I still need to get some neon lights and all that to hang up there. I haven't. This is a work in process yet.
Yeah, sure.
But then up here for like the supports for the garage door. You see the Carroll Shelby. Kind of a tribute to Carroll Shelby there.
Oh yeah, right up there. Super cool. Yeah. Wow, what a beautiful garage.
That is
inspirational.
Here,
I want something like that someday.
Yeah, then the garage, that's the garage logo there. That's the car.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure enough.
So,
and that beautiful toolbox in the back, that whole bench.
That's the brain. That's the brain center. somebody other than me is working
my
there, it's the
gosh.
brain center.
Oh, dude, I love it. Thanks for the tour.
Yeah,
That's
my pleasure.
awesome.